All right, welcome everyone. Now we're seeing the crowds. I love it. So great to see so many of you here with us. We have a full house today. I'm so excited. I'm Mark Brenner with the Labor Education and Research Center at University of Oregon. I'm going to be your cruise director for the afternoon. And I'm very happy to have you all here. We've got so many folks. It's going to take us a minute to get everybody into the room. So I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes of grace, and then we will get going. I'll introduce kind of how we're going to run things today and what we're going to be doing, and then introduce our amazing lineup. So hang tight, everyone. Really great to have you all here. And I will also recommend, I just wanted to warn folks, we are recording this. We'll be posting the recording on the Labor Education and Research Center's YouTube channel at some point once we can get it downloaded and trimmed and ready to go. We'll do that in conjunction with our actual release of the report, which I'll talk about in one minute once we get everybody in. People are pouring in. I love it. So happy to have you all here. Again, for folks who just joined, my name is Mark Brenner. I work at the Labor Education Research Center at the University of Oregon. We are playing host today. I see at least one U of O alum or fan out in the audience there. So go Ducks. I don't have a dog in that fight. Sorry, I'm from the South. We don't. We have our own rivalries. So let's just get one more minute to let everybody else in there. It was you, Danny. I saw that. You wear it right on your chest. Great. All right. Well, I don't want to stir up any controversy at the outset here. So we will keep our Oregon Public University rivalries to a minimum. I think we can get going. Everyone's in from the waiting room. Again, happy to have you all here. My name is Mark Brenner. For some of you I know, many of you I do not. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm on the faculty at the University of Oregon, and starting in December, I'll be co-director of the Labor Education and Research Center. We have been around since 1977. Obviously, I was in I think second grade at that time. I was not steering the ship, but I'm happy to be here now. And for that whole time, 44 years, we have been promoting policies with research and organizing to lift standards for working people across Oregon and across the country. And today, I'm so happy to have you all here to talk about some of that research that we've been doing around apprenticeships in the state. And here, co-conspiring with me to host this today, I have Kelly Haynes from Work Systems. Kelly, maybe I'll turn it to you to say a bit about Work Systems, and then I'll give everybody the sort of recap of what we're doing.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, my name's Kelly Haynes. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the construction sector lead for Work Systems, the local workforce board that serves Washington and Multnomah counties. I see a couple other workforce board staff on the call from across the state. Thanks for joining today. I think for us, this is a really good body of research to share. We invest in high quality careers for people in different high wage, high growth sectors, including construction. We were originally looking at apprenticeship data that Boley supplied, and we're able to find a really good partnership with LERC to help us better analyze the data and go a little bit further around our goal of advancing workforce equity. So it's just been really helpful research. So I'm glad you all are here today to learn more about that report and how it can help inform policy for the region. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I should have led with the punchline. Our report we are releasing tomorrow, and everyone who's registered for this, you're getting the less than 24-hour preview of our findings and analysis that we're sharing. You will get an email tomorrow sometime during the day letting you know that the PDF's available for download. And of course, if you are interested in getting a hard copy of the report, we can also provide that. I'll drop my email in the chat at some point so you can stay in touch. I will, as I said, you know, I will various times do quick promos for the Labor Center. We're very happy to be a partner with Work Systems and all of the folks on the panel here today, talking about this really important initiative, the study that we did and the great work that Larissa Petrucci has pulled together for us. So what I'm going to do now, however, is I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Ransom from the Bureau of Labor and Industries just to talk a little bit about this issue as it relates to BOLI and a little bit about her perspective on the report itself and this really important work of increasing the diversity in our construction workforce. Lisa, great to have you.
Mark. Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everyone, and happy National Apprenticeship Week to everyone. As Mark said, I am Lisa Ransom, the Director of the Apprenticeship and Training Division. And thank you for your time this afternoon and this important body of work as it aligns and supports the work my team and I perform daily. Just as a quick intro, prior to my assuming this role in April of 2022, I was the Southern Regional Manager for North America's Building Trades Union's Helmets to Hard Hats program, where for my 12 years there, my responsibilities were to assist military career seekers transition into career opportunities in construction across North Carolina to New Mexico. Now, over the course of that time there, I witnessed the amazing outcomes of thousands of military career seekers who chose a career pathway through registered apprenticeship. My work with apprenticeship is not only a passion, but it's very personal, as I am a Marine Corps veteran, and my daughter is currently a foreman, journeyman electrician in the DC area. So I witnessed her going from a college student to being unemployed, being underemployed, being underpaid, and unskilled. But once I came into the knowledge of registered apprenticeship and training, I introduced the concept to her as a consideration. So you fast forward 10 years later, and she's not only proud of who she is and the career that she's earned, but she's most especially proud of the impact that she's making in the lives of Black women with whom she encounters on the job site, just by virtue of them seeing someone with whom they can identify with in a management position that is historically held by white men. So in my division, our mission is to bridge the gap between businesses, workers, and education partners to support opportunities for great jobs and a dependable, qualified workforce through excellent apprenticeship programs. So during my time here, many of you in the audience have witnessed the changes that we've implemented to make our apprenticeship systems easier to access while we're removing unnecessary barriers and being transparent as we strive to minimize and eliminate the bureaucratic red tape. And we are dedicated to this ongoing review of processes and studies and research that offer us the best options to offer you the best customer service to those of us who depend on us. We're focused on expanding apprenticeship opportunities to people who have historically been excluded and underrepresented, specifically women in our communities of color. This is not only a longstanding key performance measure, but it's also our values, our mission, and the vision of this agency. Now, although our apprenticeship diversity percentages are higher than some of the national averages, they're still not reflective of the marginalized communities in which they operate. And we continuously see persistently high numbers of apprenticeship in these communities that don't complete their programs. So now we have our first diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator in our division, who just started less than 60 days ago, who's here to help improve diversity outcomes in apprenticeship programs across the state. Because we want our state programs to start focusing more on their equity lenses from the perspective of how are we incorporating our equity lens when we're reviewing our internal hiring processes, as well as our selection processes. We want our programs to start asking themselves from a perspective of how are we accounting for our racial disparities? While at the same time, as a division, we're asking ourselves what mechanisms do we have in place for accountability and what are the appropriate recommendations? Part of this For part of this reason, we recently rolled out our new Oregon Plan for Equal Employment Opportunity, we recently rolled out our new Oregon Plan for Equal Employment Opportunities in Registered Apprenticeship. This plan includes updated requirements to meet the new regulations under the Department of Labor's Code of Federal Regulations 29 Part 30. And some of the new requirements include anti-harassment training, a targeted plan for race, sex, and ethnicity. And one of the things, the new additions of note is the disability utilization, which provides apprentices with an invitation to self-identify as having a disability, which will help meet the Department of Labor's 7% disability utilization goal. And it's especially important for our veteran population who have returned with closed brain injuries, with PTSD. One of the things that the Labor Commissioner has really made clear as to one of her goals is for us to expand opportunities of apprenticeship in industries beyond the traditional buildings and construction trades. The apprenticeship model, as we know, is underutilized despite its well-known success, and it's easily adaptable to provide opportunity and support for workforce and economic development. I'm happy to report that just over the last year, we have expanded apprenticeship beyond building and construction trades. Our Oregon Apprenticeship and Training Council has approved 10 new apprenticeship programs and 7 pre-apprenticeship programs. We now have apprenticeship programs being offered in behavioral health, occupations in support of the medical industries, manufacturing, and we're exploring how we can professionalize careers in the cannabis industry. Another one of our Labor Commissioner's goal is for us to be as transparent as possible as well. We know that in certain circles, apprenticeship is viewed as a less than option when compared to the standard 2 to 4 year degree program. However, I know that apprenticeship is the original 4 year degree program with little to no student loan debt awaiting at its conclusion. And so for this reason, the Apprenticeship and Training Division in March of next year, we will be launching our annual public report card of Oregon Registered Apprenticeship Programs. This report card is intended to capture key elements that will show a measurement of accountability and benefits of participating in registered apprenticeship programs so that career seekers and employers can make an informed decision regarding their participation in apprenticeship. We're going to be utilizing key elements such as showing the wage difference between programs. We want to show the participation rates breakdown by race so that, again, we want potential career seekers and employers to be able to make an informed decision. So when you think of apprenticeship, you should think of the Apprenticeship and Training Division. The Apprenticeship and Training Division provides the resources to link industry with education and training strategies to create pathways to middle and high wage jobs for Oregonians and a qualified workforce for businesses. We will continue to build value in apprenticeship systems for Oregon workers and employers. But we also know continued efforts like this, as this report will reflect, are needed in order for us to reach parity. And that is why these conversations are so critical. So thank you again, Mark. Thank you again, Larissa, for your this tireless effort so that we can continue to work together in building a stronger, inclusive apprenticeship culture for Oregon.
Thanks so much, Lisa. That was great. And we're so glad to have you both where you are in your role in BOLI and also to have you here with us today. I do not want to bury the lead of our findings today. And one of the things that shines through very clearly in our report is the critical role that unions play in improving apprenticeship outcomes for workers of color and for women in the trades. So our next speaker will, I'm sure, have something to say about that. I'd like to next invite Robert Camarillo from the Oregon State Building and Construction Trades Council to offer us a few words and his perspective on the issue of apprenticeship programs and how we improve the pipeline for historically marginalized folks.
Hey, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the invitation. It's good to be here. I don't know if I'm cutting out or not, but I was getting a lot of freezing faces, so I'll do my best here. But if it does, I may have to shut off the screen because it seems to work a little better when I shut the screen off. But first of all, I'd like to thank you and your team there at LERC, Mark, especially Larissa, for putting this report together. I think it couldn't have come at a more important time with the amount of work that we're getting ready to see here in the industry. We're going to be literally building all this infrastructure, bridges, roads, schools, broadband, and power for Oregon's future. And so I'll leave it up to the academics to talk about what this will mean for Oregon's economy and the workforce. But what I know firsthand is that these are still some of the only jobs left in the country where someone can start right out of college or right out of high school and not have to go to college and build a real life for themselves and earn enough to support a family, to buy a house, get themselves out of debt if they have debt, and retire after 20 or 30 years in the industry, in the trades, right? And so it's no exaggeration to say that this is what the building trades unions have made possible. We made these jobs into good paying jobs, and I'm proud of the work that all of our union affiliates, all of our apprenticeship programs, all our union leaders have done to continue to make sure these are good jobs for the next generation in the construction industry here in Oregon. I'm also proud of the work that our affiliates, all our unions are doing to make sure that our communities have access to these good jobs in the industry. I know better than a lot of folks that the various ways unions haven't always lived up to our values, or I know the various ways that we haven't lived up to our values. It wasn't, it always hasn't been easy for people that look like me and many of you that are here, right, to find a pathway into the trades. And I'll be the first person to say that there has been issues in the past where there's probably still some issues, but we've made a lot of progress. And I think this report, shows the progress that our affiliates are making and the unions are making to address, this issue around racial equity, right? I mean, racial diversity and inclusion matter in the building trades. And, I think this report shows that, right? That, we want to continue to create a positive job site culture and make sure that women and workers of color feel safe and they can come to work and really shine and really have a long, successful career in the building trades and become leaders, right? Run these big, complicated projects and become superintendents and become owners of companies and do all the things that come with being successful in building trades. And so I think the report also makes it clear that the history of exclusion in the building trades unions is definitely not what is happening here anymore, right? And so we've changed that. Our affiliates are committed and dedicated to changing that pattern and making it a more inclusive place, a more diverse, creating a diverse workforce. And so, again, we still got a lot of work to do. We're not done. But we're definitely going down the right track, and I'm very happy with all the work that everyone is doing. And again, I just want to thank you all for your support, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And again, appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all the work you do at the Oregon State Building and Construction Trades Council. As Robert said, you're actually kind of soft pedaling it. I mean, our findings are very clear. Unions perform better. Union apprenticeship programs perform better in every dimension. And if, in my view, if we want to really continue down the path that you described of improving outcomes for women and workers of color, unions are going to be a critical piece of that puzzle. But we also know that we have other interventions, other supports that are required. And in particular, one of the things that I think our report shows, which you'll see in the findings, is that many of these interventions that we're doing, particularly pre-apprenticeship programs and targeted recruitment, are working. And I want to turn the floor over to Kelly Kupchak from Oregon Tradeswomen to talk a little bit about OTI and also to talk about what you've seen in this work and maybe share some sense of what this looks like really on the ground. So
Thanks.
Kelly.
Thanks so much, Mark, for the opportunity to be here today. And thanks to Larissa for her incredible work in this report and sharing the findings with our community of practice. And I do want to just take a quick minute to say thank you to Robert for his leadership at the State Building and Construction Trades Council for working with not only Oregon Tradeswomen, but other pre-apprenticeship training programs across our community to help ensure that apprentices complete, and especially women and BIPOC trades workers. And thank you to Lisa Ransom for your leadership in making sure that in addition to all the other things that you do, you're lifting up diversity, equity, inclusion, and making sure that in our registered apprenticeship system, folks that look like me and others here today on the call and across our communities are represented. I'm really proud to serve as the executive director at Oregon Tradeswomen. We do pre-apprenticeship training or apprenticeship readiness training for adult job seekers that identify as women or non-binary. And we are really proud that over the last 4 years, we have shifted from only about 30% of our graduates going into union programs to 76% this year. And we see firsthand what that means in the lives of those women who go to work in union apprenticeship programs. They're making a higher wage. They're completing at a much higher success rate than their non-union counterparts. They are, in fact, Larissa's going to share more on the report, but right now, women are completing at a significantly higher rate, about 50% compared to only 29% of women who are in non-union programs. And the wages and the benefits are critical. I want to share really briefly that part of our work at Oregon Tradeswomen, we serve a significant number of very low-income women who are underemployed, unemployed, and thanks to partners who work with us and support us like Penny Painter, who help provide support services to help those folks be successful. It is a huge difference when they go into a union apprenticeship program and complete, because they're making a wage that can support themselves and their families. I'm living proof of that. I, made more money digging holes in the dirt as a union heavy equipment operator than I did with a college degree. And it allowed me to take care of my family as a single mom. And I'm proud of that history and my background. And I'm really privileged to work with so many folks of you on the call today who are working to ensure that people have equity, so gender equity, racial equity, and economic equity, which is critical to our communities. And it's an investment that's important for all of us to make. So that's some of the work that we do at Oregon Tradeswomen that we're really proud of. And I'm incredibly honored to introduce Iris Gandalia, who is a graduate from 2007 of our program in Oregon Tradeswomen. She's a former board member. I know it's polite company, but she's also a badass tradeswoman who's at UA Local 290, and she's on the staff there now for the apprenticeship. So I want to turn it over to her. And again, so excited to be here talking about this report findings during National Apprenticeship Week. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kelly, for that introduction. And I was really, really excited about this report when I read it. I had a really hard time thinking about what I was going to say. So I wrote it down because I didn't want to ramble off, but I'm still just just a little background, I'm a high school dropout. And when I decided to drop back in at 19 years old, it was not as easy as when I lived at home. I had to have an apartment and everything. So I found myself looking to the trades, and I went through a few pre-apprenticeship programs, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Before I got into a union position or a union apprenticeship program, I experienced a little bit of the non-union work that was out there, and it was very difficult. I found myself struggling to get the training from my coworkers. The way we went about getting the jobs done sometimes felt kind of unsafe and dangerous. Many didn't wear PPE and sometimes actually gave me a hard time for doing so and would actually use it against me, calling me out saying, you know, this is why I wasn't capable of doing the work, you know, because I needed gloves. Also, the competitiveness of staying employed created animosity, you know, and fear that the guy next to you, he might know more than you, so therefore he might take your job. So needless to say, being a woman in the trades, a person of color in the construction side it's hard to find the success and can be challenging. Well, joining the union apprenticeship program was probably the best decision I ever made for myself and my family. I can tell you a little bit about what I did in the field, you know, as a journeyman steam fitter welder. I became certified as a welder in this local in 2014. And kind of being a welder in our local, in our trade is a little bit like being a rock star. Maybe that's not true, but it is for me. I get to work on different projects, installing heating and cooling systems, you know, projects like Intel, hospitals, casinos, casinos being probably one of the most important ones. And I pinch myself, and I can't believe that they pay me to do what I love to do, which is, I know it's kind of simpleton, but I'm a welder. I love it. The benefits are great, and I make a great living wage. Let's see, $290 is great. So I guess aside from all that, you know, obviously some of the stuff that happened in the non-union job sites, I didn't really have to struggle with some of those simple things, which has made a huge difference. Not to say that, you know, every job site was like rainbows and unicorns, but definitely I was able to create a sort of find the allies, people that were willing to train me, people that were willing to take me under their wing. And a 5-year apprenticeship program is just really scratching the surface of what you can do being in a union. Besides journeying out, you can become a foreman, lead crews, you can become a GF, lead the crews and run the projects. There's so much you can do. You can work, you know, in a shop, you can work in the industrial side of our work, in the high tech side. So you're just not limited, you know, and there's so much room to grow. And with that comes better pay, you know, so, and all the training that comes with it. But what's great about it is that, you know, I'm able to feel like I am part of a team, that I'm valued because of the skills that I've been able to acquire here. And those skills keep me busy working, you know. The best part is that I make a good living wage, healthcare for me and my family. I have a vacation fund. I know this is kind of maybe bragging a little bit, but and the best part is that I know that there's hope for me that one day I can retire pretty comfortably. And so I'm really, really honored to say and really happy and excited that I got the curriculum coordinator position as a steam fitter here in the local 290. I feel like I have, with all the experience that I have, the struggle out there, I have a voice at the table now where I can really help other women, you know, get into these higher paying jobs and careers. And also the leadership in my local has really reached out to the women of color and the women in our trade, and put us in these leadership positions. I am currently also serve as the inside guard for our union. So I'm probably, I'm around, and it's important. And yeah, so I hope that kind of gives you a little information and background as to what it means to be a union hand, a union apprentice, a union journeyman. And I'm pretty proud of it, so yeah, thank you.
I think everyone agrees with me in absolutely affirming your rock star status, Cyrus. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and for both you and Kelly for the work you do at OTI. I do not want to keep you all waiting any longer. I am very, very happy now to pass the floor over to Dr. Larissa Petrucci, who is the main event today, the author of our apprenticeship report, which for those of you just joining us, we will be releasing tomorrow. You're getting a less than 12-hour preview, and we will email you a link tomorrow as well, just where you can download the report. But Larissa worked at the Labor Center as our research assistant, our GE this past year, and one of the many contributions that she made was her work on this apprenticeship report. Larissa has now finished her PhD and is off conquering the world, first at Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. So we're really happy to have you back in Oregon, even if it's only virtually, Larissa. So let me turn the floor over to you. Thank you for all your great work on this. We're really, really happy to be able to see it come to fruition, and we're really just so happy that you were able to be with us at LERC. So we miss you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Let me first, so I don't have to mess around with this anymore, just try to share my slides. So let's see if I can share my screen. Yes. All right, are you all seeing that okay? Great. So as Mark said, I'm Larissa. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's exciting, obviously, to get to share the report results with you, but it's really exciting for me to hear that this is meaningful to you all and to actually get to hear from folks in the trade, since I had been working with the numbers so much. So I'm really happy to be joining you all today in this conversation. And of course, so much of a thank you to LERC for all their help in constructing this report and making, double checking all of the numbers and all of the edits were very much appreciated. And thank you to Metro, who also did a lot of work helping in the report. You can read all the acknowledgements in the report when you get it tomorrow. So I'm joining you from the Midwest today, but excited to talk a little bit about Oregon. So we'll be thinking through construction diversity, particularly in the greater Portland area today. So construction jobs in Oregon have been on the rise since 2010, with the Oregon Employment Department projecting an addition of nearly 11,900 new jobs in construction between 2019 and 2029, making construction the third fastest growing industry in Oregon. Construction apprenticeships, as you've kind of heard, have a long history of providing workers with on-the-job and classroom training, high wages, and oops, sorry, I don't know if you could see that. There you go. High wages, as well as providing career pathways and giving employers a steady stream of skilled workers. In fact, researchers have argued that apprenticeship programs actually help to reduce social inequalities, especially thinking about the debt that they don't often accrue compared to other kinds of trainees. So, thinking about the good jobs that construction provides, it's really important to think about equity within the construction industry. And as more and more workers join construction apprenticeship programs and as employers make targeted attempts to recruit and retain women and workers of color, this up-to-date research is really needed to assess the state of construction apprenticeship in Oregon and the impact of unions on apprenticeship outcomes, as we've kind of mentioned, we're going to talk about today. So drawing upon data from the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, thank you so much to Bully for all of this amazing data. This report analyzes outcomes for 17,964 people who were enrolled in construction apprenticeship programs in the greater Portland area between 2011 and 2020. So it's quite a large data set. So this report really includes aggregated and disaggregated data to examine kind of four characteristics or pieces of diversity and equity. So I'm looking at enrollment, graduation rates, separation rates, and wage rates, though we'll talk about wages a little less today and focus on the other categories, in order to make comparisons between union and non-union programs and examine their role in apprenticeship diversity and equity outcomes. So first, looking at enrollment in construction apprenticeships in Oregon have increased since the early 2000s. New construction apprenticeship enrollment doubled between 2011 and 2019 in the greater Portland area, from 1,200 new apprentice enrollments to 2,647. This increase mirrors national trends where registered apprentices grew by 128% between 2009 and 2019. Union programs in particular in the greater Portland area make up a significant proportion of all construction trade apprenticeships. In 2020, there were only 15 non-union apprenticeship programs compared to 36 union programs in the greater Portland area alone. In this study, 72% of the apprentices were enrolled in union programs and 28% were enrolled in non-union programs. This might not be surprising to us in Oregon, as union representation in the Oregon construction industry, which is at about 22%, remains far above the national average of 12.6% in 2019. So again, following some national trends, the majority of apprentices included in this study, 74% were white, while 26% were Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Women were particularly underrepresented in apprenticeship programs, despite making up 57.3% of people aged 16 and older in the labor force in Oregon. Women made up 8% of construction apprentices in the greater Portland area. So again, reflecting what we kind of know about the industry, white men made up the largest proportion of apprentices, followed by men of color, white women, and women of color. However, what this report importantly shows is that, as you can kind of see in these pie charts, there's a greater diversity of apprentices enrolled in union programs compared to non-union programs. And while these numbers can tell us a bit about diversity in terms of the composition of union and non-union programs, the rest of the study focuses on what I hope we're really interested in improving, which is equity, by looking at a range of outcomes and seeing if they're stratified by race and gender. So the first outcome we'll look at is graduation rates. I looked at graduation rates to examine gender and racial equity, as well as differences in union and non-union graduation rates. So to explain a little bit what graduation rates are for the purposes of this report, graduation rates refer to the percentage of apprentices who started their training between 2011 and 2015 and completed sometime between 2011 and 2020. So I chose the 2011 to 2015 cohort to look at because many programs take about 4 years to complete. So I didn't want to include cohorts of people that may not have graduated yet, just because it's still kind of within the average period for them to complete the program. So it's reasonable to expect that an apprentice who might have enrolled in 2016 maybe hadn't completed by the end of this data set, which was 2020. So all of these rates of graduation are just looking at those people who enrolled from 2011 to 2015 and within the following 9 years graduated at some point. So overall, of all the people in that cohort, 53% of apprentices had graduated. Men did graduate at higher rates than women across union and non-union programs. 45% of women who registered between 2011 and 2015 completed their programs, compared to 53% of men. A greater proportion of white apprentices, 55%, graduated compared to BIPOC, 44%. Black men and Black women in particular experienced low graduation rates at 29% and 37% respectively. It is important to note here that small sample sizes require caution when interpreting results. While there were more than 100 men in every racial and ethnic group in the cohort of registrants between 2011 and 2015, and nearly 400 white women in the cohort, there were less than 50 women of color across every racial and ethnic group. Still, I found that women and people of color have higher graduation rates overwhelmingly in union programs compared to non-union programs. As was kind of mentioned, 50% of women in union programs completed, compared to only 29% in non-union programs, which is a pretty big difference from that 53% average. People of color also had much higher rates of completion in union programs, 45%, than in non-union programs, 40%. And while Black apprentices experienced the lowest graduation rates of all racial and ethnic groups at 30%, there was a really significant union difference. 33% of Black apprentices in union programs graduated, compared to 23% of Black apprentices in non-union programs. Something important to note is that graduation rates may vary from trade to trade, with licensed trades in particular taking a bit longer to complete. So in order to kind of think about that, you can see some of the differences in graduation rates for trades that had both union and non-union programs with more than 50 apprentices enrolled. And again, you can kind of see overwhelmingly there were higher rates of graduation in unions compared to non-union programs. So overall, these results on graduation rates show that institutions like unions play a significant role in mitigating or mediating labor market inequalities. The stark race and gender differences in graduation rates in non-union apprenticeship programs shows that absent these mediating institutions, the persistent barriers faced by women and workers of color will continue to have an impact on labor market outcomes. Still, of course, the findings highlight the need to address inequities around graduation rates for women and people of color across programs. In many cases, the inability to complete a program can result from structural inequalities, such as arranging childcare that may keep parents and especially mothers from being able to find the hours they need to move through the program. And research shows that for women in particular, a lack of meaningful tasks or the experience of sexism on the worksite can slow down your progress and leave women with lower quality training compared to men, making it more difficult to progress through the program. Other inequities experienced by women and workers of color can be fewer hours, not being a part of core crews, or on-the-job harassment. In general, apprentices may also experience difficulty completing their programs as a result of financial hardships associated with regular periods of unemployment in the construction industry. Still, we can see that union programs in particular are doing a better job of graduating their apprentices. So while graduation rates offer an important lens for analyzing gender and racial equity in construction apprenticeship programs, separation rates can also really highlight many of the barriers women and workers of color may encounter in this industry. Separation can happen as a result of a voluntary or an involuntary termination of the apprentice's contract agreement. So this is how it's categorized by Boley. So an apprentice may voluntarily terminate their apprenticeship agreement for a number of reasons, the most common being financial challenges, lack of consistent work, harassment and discrimination, lack of mentorship and training, difficulty of work, and the cost and time away from home that may result in having to travel from work to work sites. Research shows that white women dropouts in particular receive less training hours than their white male counterparts, which may explain their dropout rates as they're not able to accrue the hours they need to, progress through the program. So in this study, 38% of apprentices who had enrolled in programs had terminated contracts. We find that apprentices who separated from their program make up an equal proportion of non-union programs compared to union programs, meaning that in both the non-union and union trade, there was equal amounts of separation rates overall. But when you start to look at race and gender, again, some patterns emerge. So on average, workers of color in the study separated at higher rates than white workers, 44% compared to 35%, and women separated at higher rates than men, 41% compared to 37%. Importantly, we must note that white women have lower separation rates than both men of color and women of color, with women of color having the highest separation rates of any group. But within non-union programs, a higher proportion of BIPOC separated from their program compared to the union programs. So 47% of people of color enrolled in non-union apprenticeship programs separated compared to 43% in union programs. A significantly higher proportion of women separated from non-union programs compared to women who separated in union programs. So 51% of women enrolled in non-union programs separated, so over half, compared to 38% of women enrolled in union programs. And again, that 38% is reflective of the average across programs and gender. Compared to all racial and ethnic groups, Black apprentices in both union and non-union programs were the highest proportion of separations, though the proportion was slightly higher in non-union programs again. So finally, I just want to briefly discuss wages. As you kind of heard today, compared to many other jobs, construction trades and apprenticeship programs offer strong pathways into well-paying middle-class careers. During an apprenticeship program, apprentices may make a particular portion of a final journey level wage, depending on how many hours they've completed in the program. So for example, if the pay for a unionized inside electrician is $47.85 an hour, the apprentice makes a percentage of this hourly rate based on how many years they've been in the program or how many hours of the program they've completed. Pay may also vary in a trade depending on whether or not you're in a union program or a non-union program, and across trades depending on whether or not the trade is licensed. But overall, we found that union programs represent a higher proportion of the better paying trades than the non-union programs. And a greater proportion of women in BIPOC and union programs were enrolled in high paying trades compared to the women in BIPOC in non-union programs. It was actually women of color in non-union programs that experienced the lowest wages of any group. So data in the study reflect the ongoing importance of especially union apprenticeship programs, which continue to account for a greater diversity of trades and a significant proportion of enrolled apprentices in and around Portland. And this study shows that as an industry, construction apprenticeships must continue to bolster efforts to recruit and retain historically underrepresented and excluded workers. However, the data importantly shows that union programs account for a greater diversity of apprentices and do lead to better outcomes for women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color enrolled in apprenticeship programs. Importantly, researchers have proposed a number of recommendations to improve the recruitment and retention of women and people of color in the construction trades, as we kind of heard from Lisa. So these include recruitment practices, like examining the success rates of female applicants or using gender neutral job language, mentorship practices, developing formal mentorship programs in each program so that workers are always paired with a mentor. Equitable access to work hours, allowing workers to rotate jobs or establish flexible work arrangements, of course, establishing anti-harassment policies, and importantly, pushing for supports outside of the workplace that affect women and people of color's ability to be successful at work, including providing financial support for gas or travel, developing hardships funds, providing pregnancy leave, and providing childcare during the courses that you may have to take while in an apprenticeship. So as unions continue to be leaders in recruitment and retention of women and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, we really think state officials should look to unions for opportunities to improve gender and racial equity in construction work. Thanks so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Larissa. That was fantastic. I shudder to think about how long it took you to be able to get it all in and be so coherent. Before we get going into the Q&A, I'm going to actually hand it over to my co-conspirator, Kelly Haynes, to just make a few remarks. And I think we even have a special video.
Thanks, Mark. I'm actually going to turn it over to Michael Birch as a co-chair of the Metropolitan Alliance for Workforce Equity to introduce a quick video that we produced.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mark, Iris, and Larissa. I'd just like to say that what you're about to see is data that is older than what Larissa just presented, right? It's from 2016. And when we do these projects, when we sit down and we talk about policies and procedures, the people actually doing the work never get an opportunity to testify unless we somehow bring them to the table, get videos, or show up. When we show up at City Council, they don't have an opportunity because they're working. So Jody Getzlow Parker, thank you, from a long time ago. And this is what we have for you to see and to witness and to understand. Thank you.
Can you guys see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks.
The school isn't for everybody. I think I got caught up in it where society was like, college, college, college. You have to go to college. If you want to be successful, you have to go to college. I'm $60,000 in debt, and I could have joined this trade out of high school and been debt free, earned while I learned.
My friend told me about this career fair program that they have every May that's orchestrated by the Oregon tradeswoman. I didn't know anything about construction, let alone masonry, but I went union. I mean, the non-union option was there, but I knew as a woman it wasn't going to be as open of an option. And so I decided to go union. Probably the best decision I've made.
Now the unions are doing more so working with apprenticeship programs like Construction Hope, which is getting people ready to do works with the union, get their licenses and get their things in order, so when they get a chance to step on board with a union, they won't have a problem.
From my very experience, personally, I think the union reps play a big role. And people like Ben Gomez go out of their way to recruit people of color and to join the union. They make many efforts in explaining the process and meeting several times and connecting us with other business opportunities.
You know, when you're non-union, you're always concerned about where the next job is coming from, how you're going to pay for your health care, retirement, your benefits. Everything is on your shoulders solely and completely.
It's been a world of a difference between non-union and union, just in terms of work environment, the safety culture, and not to mention better pay with the union, the benefits package with the health care and the services that they offer.
I've been able to provide a good living for me, my family, been able to buy a house and enjoy life, travel the world. When people ask about why they should join the union, I tell them, look at me. I explain to them what I know about the union. I explain to them wage differences, equal opportunity differences. You have an organization that has your back.
I think unions are very welcoming to everybody. It's just a work ethic. If you're there to work and you're there to prove and be a team player and look out for your brothers and sisters, you are more than welcome to be there.
Well, as a minority in the labor union, there's no limit to what you can make. There's no limit to where you can go in the field. And it's not like there's a ceiling when you get in. It's like, all right, you start at the bottom, now go up.
Super. Thank you so much, Michael, Kelly, for bringing that to us and all the work that you do at Maui. I will invite you to share the link in the chat so others can maybe use that in their work. I was certainly excited to see this and have it in heavy rotation when I talk about this now. So the floor is now open. Standard Zoom rules apply. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. We can also take questions in the chat for anybody that would like to jump in. And I will obviously tap all our panelists at different times to see if they want to add anything. But Kelly Kay, go for it.
Mark, thanks so much. And I just wanted to point out one of the many important things that Larissa addresses in the report and shared about the findings is that the impact of job site culture and how that impacts retention of apprentices, in particular women and people of color, but really all apprentices when they're looking at an industry that historically has had a very toxic and hostile work environment. The work we do at Oregon Tradeswomen as an advocacy organization for trades workers in partnership with many of the folks here on today's call and across the country, I want to just say that we would not have seen the changes in job site culture and the shifts of more women in the last few years coming in and successfully completing registered apprenticeship in our industry if it weren't for our partnership with the unions. It's been critical and it's key to shifting job site culture and addressing those challenges about retention. So I just think that's important to point out because that's part of the puzzle. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for all that work. OTI is the anchor of a very important one of those programs, Safe from Hate. So if you want to find out more, definitely you can let us know, but obviously you have the experts right here, Kelly and Iris. So any other questions folks would like to ask? Please feel free to raise your hands or drop it in the chat. We have one question in the chat for you, Larissa. Does the data account for non-registered apprenticeships at all?
I believe this is only registered apprentices. Yeah, the BOLI information we got.
Super. So we are speaking only to registered apprenticeship programs with the state. So thank you for that. And then we have another one in the chat. I see the chat's going to be a popular option for our questions here. Can you speak to any disaggregation of the data looking at regional differences or age? Did you have a chance to look at any of those? Maybe something that you didn't put in, but that you want to share?
Yeah, we didn't look at regional or age differences. I'm trying to remember if we had the age data. I think that we might not have had it. But no, we didn't look at regional or age differences. Maybe something for the future. Sounds like a next project.
And I can say, Goldan, I see your question about the public employees versus private organizations, corporations. These were all I'll let Larissa speak to that, but I did want to just say one of the things that really came out from this work that we want to follow up on is exactly this question of sort of how we can, what standards we can apply, particularly through public projects to lift standards for everybody, but especially provide opportunities for women and workers of color in the trades. And so stay tuned for maybe a spring project looking at differences between project labor agreements and other non-binding forms of standard setting. That's a project we really want to tackle in the coming year. I don't know if you want to say anything else about Goldan's question.
No, yeah, we didn't separate by private organizations or public employees, just by union, non-union, or trade. I think was the most we separated across the kind of trade level data we had.
And if it's helpful, this is Kelly Haynes, and if Larry's on the call, he can also help specify. So registered apprentices are employed by private contractors or private employers called training agents. So every employer that hires an apprentice, a registered apprentice, has to become a training agent with BOLI. So all of these apprentices worked for training agents, which were the employers that basically supply the training opportunities on their job sites.
Thanks for that clarification, Kelly. Let's see. Then now they're coming fast and furious. Next question was, is there any information we have on reentry populations? I don't believe we had those data. I don't know if, Larry, if you want to speak to whether or not BOLI collects info like that.
No, we don't have that information in our database. We might be able to do some stuff with survey data, but I think it's limited right now.
Thank you. Okay, so Molly has a question. Was any data obtained on the specific reasons why people chose the non-union apprenticeship programs to go into as opposed to union apprenticeships? Larissa, I don't know if we have any info about how people tracked into one or the other?
Yeah, so that's a great question that I think a lot of folks will have after reading this report, as well as a number of other kind of interpretive questions about, what is it exactly that's causing the union programs to do so much better in graduating women and people of color. And I would say for all of those qualitative researchers out there who love doing interviews or survey analysis, I hope you use this report as kind of a quantitative platform to do your research on, because this study did not incorporate kind of interpretations of the kind of objectives or of the kind of reasons people had. But I don't know if Kelly or Iris, you want to speak to anything like that?
I can say certainly some of the feedback that we have, and this is not from any formal study that we've done at Oregon Tradesmen, but in talking to graduates from our program, as well as folks that haven't gone through our program but are looking for a career in the trades or needing help navigating a pathway, there's individual differences that people might want to go into non-union programs versus union. But I will say this, that many of our graduates who have chosen to go to the non-union path first and then gone to the union side have a very similar story to what Iris shared, that was a much better experience, that they received the support they needed, they received quality on the job training and rotation and consistency in mentorship that made a lot of difference for them. But I think it's something that is important to look at as we continue to do this work together to understand those reasons.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Molly's question, we don't ask people in the beginning, right, why they choose one over the other. I know in the pre-apprenticeship programs, they provide a union option and a non-union option for whichever craft they want to go into. But sitting on 2 JATCs, Joint Apprenticeship Training Committees for the carpenters, we see people that come from the non-union side, and they talk to us about the lack of training that goes on and the higher wages. That's what I can pretty much land on for why they come to the union. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Michael. That is helpful. And we're talking about BOLI certified programs, right, in all of this? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks for your question.
Thanks,
Molly.
Kelly, too.
All right, and certainly don't want anyone to miss Connie's highlighting another great program during National Apprenticeship Week. So definitely check that out. If you haven't had your fill of apprenticeship-related conversations and webinars. Any other questions that we have for Larissa, for the panelists, for others? Feel free to raise your hand. We always like to see your shiny faces on camera, but we're happy to take your questions in the chat too. And before we take any other questions, I wanted to say, I'm remiss in not saying this at the very beginning. I wanted to give a special shout out to Barbara Byrd, one of our faculty members at the now retired from the Labor Education Research Center, who really pioneered a lot of the work that we're building on here with her study of very similar issues in the construction industry and apprenticeships more than a decade ago. So I know Barbara's on a call, and I just wanted to say a special shout out to you for making all this for helping us see how to do this and really starting us off on the right track. So thank you, Barbara. And I don't know if you have an answer to Clay's question. Actually, we have two questions ahead of that. Sorry. First, Janie's question, was there any data on folks who may have returned to complete after withdrawing previously?
No, there was not. I don't think there was a person. I don't think we could see if a person had separated and then gone into the same exact program, or that we could see that exactly.
Super. And Clay's curious why we didn't follow up on a statewide study.
I can maybe help answer that if you want, Larissa, because we kind of handed the project over to Lurk. So this was really a follow-up from the Metro Construction Workforce Market Study that Work Systems did, commissioned by the City of Portland and Metro. And that was really looking at the Portland metro market and the supply of diverse workers. So, so we just asked BOLI to run the same numbers again for this report. So that's really why we focused on the Portland metro region. It's also where most of the active policy conversations have happened historically, although they are growing statewide now. So, but that's sort of some context about why it was just the Portland metro region. Although I will say a lot of the jurisdictions of apprenticeship programs go beyond Portland metro. So like the laborers program is statewide and others. So some of that, there will be some crossover around geography as well.
Super, thank you, Kelly. One of the qualitative things Meg's pointing out that we definitely would like to follow up with is more in-depth conversations with employers on separations, so that we have a better sense in a more granular way of what the experience on the employer side is for separations and sort of what we're learning here. But that's definitely not something that we have in the data itself. But one question that Quincy raises, which I do think is an interesting one, I know the answer for our data, but I don't know the answer for BOLI as a whole, which is, do we collect information on pre-apprenticeship programs and sort of the impact that these pathways into the trades have? So maybe this is a question for you, Larry, about whether BOLI's tracking that.
We track some of it. We've been actively trying to update our database and how we collect the information, and working with pre-apprenticeship programs to get better information into our system. There's probably within the highway construction trades, we are able to rely more on survey data that our researchers at Portland State University have done, and they will ask apprentices whether they went through a pre-apprenticeship program. So that's the most reliable place that in the reports from Maura Kelly and Lindsay Wilkinson at Portland State University, where you can get a general sense of how well the pre-apprenticeship programs have done feeding the system.
Thank you, Larry. And I will say, just at least from my vantage point, it seems the fact that we've seen almost more than a 50% increase between 2011 and 2020 of women and workers of color into the apprenticeship program seems to me to indicate that the pathways are working, right? That we're helping create those openings, and people are taking advantage of them. Any other questions in the chat? Let's see. Molly asks, is there any specific data on why people didn't graduate or what people believe led to their success in graduating? Maybe I will actually kick this back to Iris and Kelly Kupchak to speak to in a more granular way, because you're talking to folks every day who are coming into these programs. I do not believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Larissa, that we have any info on that from our actual BOLI data.
I know that, being in the trades, being on the job site, maybe being a person of color can be difficult. The construction industry, when I think of the culture, I think of it as literally like another culture. It's another language. And sometimes, all the misconceptions, all the stereotypes, all the biases, get in the way of people's success. And I know that it's not always easy, and sometimes it might be something as little as, just not having a car, not being able to get to work, or, I don't know, maybe Kelly has better understanding of why people don't succeed, other than I've seen it is hard, to get that training. It's getting better, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, sister. I think there's a lot of reasons, right? There's institutional barriers that get in the way of success and completions in registered apprenticeship. And there's personal barriers sometimes too, which we work in partnership with our union partners and registered apprenticeship programs and other community organizations to help eliminate those barriers. And we work with coalitions like Maui and others to work on public policy strategies to take those institutional barriers out of the way. But I think it's also really important to acknowledge that in the construction sector overall, and that includes white men, the attrition rate is high because our industry is really, really tough, as Iris said. So I guess I'd also just like to say that we have some of our union apprenticeship program directors on this call, Mike Hawes and Dominic DePiro, who work really hard and on their own in partnership with us to make sure that their apprentices are succeeding and successfully completing. So if I don't mean to put my brothers on the spot, but they might want to chime in here a little bit on that to answer Molly's question.
Thanks. And I see you have your hand up, Brittany. We'll get to you in a sec, if that's okay, just to stay on this thread. I don't know, Mike, Dominic, would one of you want to jump in and sort of speak to the question of folks who do pull out of the programs, what you're seeing?
Yeah, we see it happen, from time to time, and a lot of the direction that we're trying to go is to create more of a mentorship program, more mentorship for individuals. It's it's been an old boys network, and that's a terrible thing to say, but it has been for a long time in the trades. And to break through, I want my nephew or my son or my friend to get in, and those individuals always have somebody to go under their wing. And when we bring people to the trade that don't have family or aren't represented, and they don't have that individual to take them under their wing, that's where we see have a lot of struggles. And we're trying to create that that opportunity for individuals to go out in the field and have that support. And I think that's a way that we're going to be successful in that. So it's tough to get everybody on board with those plans, but we all know it's the right thing to do, and that's the direction that we're headed.
Yeah, I think I can echo, what Dominic said, that, unfortunately, there's been almost kind of built-in nepotism into the trades because of the old adage, how did you get in? The FBI, right? Friends, brothers, and in-laws. And so that, that can be problematic, right? As well as we've tried on so many different levels to actually reach out and survey to apprentices that have left the program. And unfortunately, they're really, really, really hard to track down, to have that conversation with, right? So I will say without hesitation, from the meetings that we've had with our retention recruitment team, that keeping them gainfully employed is probably the biggest thing that we run up against. I think a lot of us do a good job at recruiting women and people of color into the trade. And once we kind of send them off on their own to get that first job and get with that contractor, so much of their success really boils down to their first interaction and relationship that they're going to have with with the fellow journey level workers and that particular foreman at that point in time. And so, unfortunately, in the stats show us that sometimes they're the first to be laid off, right? So one of the things that we've been working on is trying to get a focus group put together of some of our contractors that are involved in the JTC, and to have some discussions at our labor management meetings. And we do have an in-house testimony that the team put together that's very powerful. That came directly from one of our apprentices that, in everybody's mind is an absolute rock star, right? Came from actually a family that did roofing, really had all the ingredients that you need to be successful. And she's like, I just couldn't stay steady working, right? I have a family to take care of. So I think to Dominic's suggestion about the mentoring and all that, I think being able to get our contractor partners engaged in the conversation about how can you help us once we have our apprentices out on the job. If they are struggling, for example, with something, pick up the phone, give us a call, let us know what's happening so that we can help offer that support. And I think when we get that dialogue going and the support from the boots on the ground out there, supervision, I think that's going to help. But I think the biggest reason, Molly, is they just can't stay consistently working, which is really, really unfortunate because we all work really, really hard to get them prepared and get them out the door.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. And thank you so much, Dominic, as well, for your insights there. I see, Larissa, you have your hand up. I don't know if you want to jump in here, but I did want to let Brittany and Jody also get their questions in before we hit our time.
I'll just jump in quickly to say, yeah, we also looked at kind of rates of separation during the probationary period or during the first, kind of years. And we did find 76% of all apprentices left the apprenticeship program within the first 2 years, and that women and people of color left at higher rates than men or whites. So that does kind of, reflect some of what folks were saying. And you'll see more of that in the report.
Super. And before we turn to you, Brittany, I just wanted to also lift up something that Kelly said about how we think about the trade, because I work with a lot of different unions and a lot of different industries. And I just, as a point of reference, more than half of all teachers in the country leave the profession within the first 5 years. It's very common in many occupations that people get in it, they realize it's not for them, and then they exit. And I think certainly in construction, we've seen that it's a tough field to succeed in, but if it's the right fit for you, it can be an amazing career. Brittany, you've been so patient. Thank you.
No worries. Actually, that's a nice segue. I was a high school teacher for 3 years. That's as long as I lasted before I found my way into higher ed, and very happy here. I've been working in higher ed for the last 13 years. So my name is Brittany. I'm an apprenticeship outreach coordinator at Clackamas Community College. And the findings clearly from this report are that unions outperform non-union programs. And as a college that supports mostly non-union groups, we've got 1,500 apprentices that are also enrolled as students taking classes at the college. I'm just wondering, is the report or the findings suggesting that we eliminate non-union programs? Are there any recommendations, for example, for programs like us? We're trying to support a lot of smaller businesses, and just some anecdotal information. Our last 4 limited maintenance electricians that got their journey card immediately left their place of work to get a higher paying job somewhere else. And so that's a problem we're kind of coming up against, just trying to help support these employers get this pipeline of skilled employees. So I'm just wondering if there's any kind of feedback for the non-union programs.
Thank you for your comment, Brittany. I don't know if anyone, Kelly Haynes, Kelly Kupchak, Iris, anyone want to jump in on this?
I think I can say, this is kind of an encouragement and a call to action that, the union programs have been able to achieve higher success rates with women and people of color. And so, we invite the other registered apprenticeship programs to join in a lot of the efforts and a lot of the demonstrated commitments that we've seen on the union side to improve their numbers as well. Because I think, these issues and challenges are industry wide, but when you see that something is working in one area, then how do we try to expand that beyond, and I think some of that is you can't really expand, because I think Mark could talk about the union advantage that's just inherent in having collective bargaining, having, union negotiated wages and things like that. But I think other efforts that have been mentioned today, we would invite the non-union programs to engage and become a part as well.
Thanks, Kelly. I don't know if other folks want to chime in, but if not, I want to quickly give the floor back to Jody, and then give a last round for all of our panelists who'd like to say anything.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for putting this on. It's amazing. I'm so glad I made it home to jump in, home being the home office of Jody. But Dominic, I think it was you that said, about what it used to be like. I think if we don't face our past, we are doomed to repeat it. That's been said before. It's not an original comment, but if we don't acknowledge the racism, the sexism, the absolute hatred for a woman to walk in a job site, we will be doomed to change that. I got into the apprenticeship in the early 90s, and it was rough. So I'm so excited to see how much we've grown in these years. But again, if we're not facing it, we're doomed to repeat it. And to Molly's question about retention, injuries is another thing that will take us out. I did have to leave the cement masons apprenticeship program due to a totally disabling back injury that almost set me back into an office environment, which at that time was really a horrible idea. But I got an opportunity with the laborers to do some stuff and actually regained and gained more physical strength through that, and have enjoyed a 28-year career. So I know OTI teaches about strengthening, and at the laborers, we are huge on safety and teach you how to use tools properly. And, so those are just a couple of my thoughts. Thank you for that time, Mark. And I look forward to the hard copy. And again,
Absolutely.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jody, and thanks for your comments. I take what you said very seriously, and I consider it a both and situation. Like, it's both true. We have to face squarely the history of exclusion and racism in our movement, but it's also really important to say that the pictures from the past are not reflective of our present, that in many ways unions are really leading on these issues. I'm very proud to work with many of you on this call, tackling some of these really difficult questions, but doing so with a historical perspective that Jody's bringing. So thank you for that. I wanted to make sure we had time for our panelists, Michael, Kelly, Iris, if you wanted to say anything, and then I wanted to let Larissa have the last word.
Thanks, Mark. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
I guess I just wanted to say one quick thing to Brittany's comment. Brittany, thanks for your work in supporting your students and apprentices. But I think at the end of the day, and we, Oregon Tradeswomen works with, we've met and worked with some non-union companies that treat their workers well, that try to be high road. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at the research, Larissa's research here today and a multitude of other research, if we want to lift up a high road model for workers and want to have a voice for workers and want to have dignity for workers, then those companies should become signatory to the unions and be part of the solution for shifting our industry. Thanks, Mark, for having us today.
Thank you, Kelly. Iris, I saw you were ready to jump in, please.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say that I check off a lot of boxes, and I just want to say that programs like OTI, PYB, and Constructing Hope are helping people like me, launch into a good living wage and benefits. And, I always like to, honor the women that came before me that have paved the way. I know it was hard for me 20 years ago. I can't imagine what it was like back then for Connie, for Kelly, for Jody, and some of the women that I know that have retired, Pepper, the badass iron worker, and Suzanne Sheens, she's a steam fitter. But yeah, Larissa, your report is like just, it just solidifies what I feel. I am biased, I am pro-union, I am pro-labor movement. So I'm always gonna push future apprentices to go into union. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Iris. Michael, I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
There's a lot of things I want to say. I'm thoroughly delighted that you guys have shown up with this report. Yes, I'm union. I've come, last 20 years, I've worked in and around union and non-union programs. And before I came here, I gave students the opportunity to choose union or non-union, just based on who they were and what they knew. And I can tell you, if I had a child and union and non-union was available, because of the lifelong learning that goes on in union training programs, because of the standardized wages and benefits, I would choose union for my child, right? And of course, I have 3 girls and none of them are union, but they're all, doing other things. But what I think, looking at the people in this room, is that there's room for everyone. There's room for everyone. If we could stop fighting amongst ourselves about union versus non-union, get in where you fit in. And I'm union. I believe in it. If you believe in non-union, believe in it, but make it better. Make it so that people are getting paid better wages and getting better benefits and have a pension plan, so that they don't come to our program saying, I'm coming because of your training and your pension and your wages. I mean, that makes me feel good in the moment, but it also makes me feel bad about the programs that they come out of, because they put in some time and labor and work, but then they come to us. So I'm a fan of the work we do. My cause has set about creating positive job site culture. Yes, we are guilty historically of keeping women and people of color out of the industry. That was a long time ago, a long time ago. So we are about getting more women and people of color into the industry. We had a vehicle that would have changed. This report that Larissa has created would be demonstrably different had we been using the CBA from 2012 till now. There would be a lot more women, a lot more people of color in this industry. So, we don't need to fight amongst ourselves. We just need to get people out on the job sites, pay better wages, pay better benefits and pensions. And I think we'll be in a much better place. Thank you for listening, and thank all of you for presenting today.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for all your work and your words of wisdom. Kelly Haynes. Nope. All right.
I'm good. Thank you all. Thank you for being here.
All right, Larissa, thank you for everything you did to bring this to fruition and for all of your hard work here. You get the last word.
Oh, I don't have much more to add because you all have added so much to the conversation already. And I just really appreciate being able to be in this space with you all and to actually do a report that's useful for people. Anyone else who's an academic knows it can sometimes feel very isolating and you feel like, what am I doing this research for? So it's so exciting to know that this is meaningful to you all. And I hope that we can continue to have conversations about it. I'm always open to talking about data, of course, and we'll be excited to see any other future research projects that come out of this as we all try to figure out how to better uplift women and workers of color in construction apprenticeships. So yeah, so nice to see you all today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you everyone on the panel for being here and speaking and telling your stories.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Again, if you are interested in getting a hard copy of the report, you can email lurk@uoregon.edu. And if you'd like us to come and speak to your organization or talk more about this work with any public owners, with any pre-apprenticeship programs you're doing, any venue, we are happy to be there to talk about why this is so important and what we can do to really open up those doors for women and workers of color. I dropped my email in the chat. It's mbrenner@uoregon.edu. Please let us know. We'll be pretty much anywhere, anytime. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to collaborating with you on this and now and in the future. So with that, we will sign off. Everyone stay safe out there and keep organizing.
Thank you.